Welcome everyone to researchroadshow.com. Today is Friday, so it's time for Protecting the Nest. Good morning, Carol.
Good morning, John. Nice to see you.
It's
And good
good to
morning,
be here.
everybody.
It's a great day in Atlanta. Weather-wise,
Oh,
there's
good.
I'm a little bit too close to the train yard for my comfort, but otherwise it's a great day.
Yes, those train crashes are a bit of a concern, but it is a great day. It's springtime, and my thoughts turn a little bit towards gardening and worm bins. We'll get there later, but the stuff that George has been reporting on, Klaus Schwab and his proclamation of what's it called now, the world something government. Um, anyway, he's announcing that he's proclaiming this world government is upon us, and that the technocrats will be taking over, and it's a wonderful thing. We'll all be happy. So, thinking about worms and thinking about Klaus Schwab, I remembered this little fragment of history called the Diet of Worms that I learned about in World War II. I think at one point there was a meeting with Churchill and Roosevelt and everybody at the end of the war. So I looked it up, and interestingly enough, there's all kinds of things that tie into what's going on right today. Um, you informed me that diet is not pronounced diet, it's pronounced diet in Latin. But what it really means, it's a Latin term, and it says you might be more familiar with it with a different language. It's also known as the Reichstag. So here we have Klaus proclaiming things in Germany, and this diet of worms goes way, way back. It started in the 770 AD, or C is what they call it now. It was called the Council of Worms. And it said Charlemagne and his successors, but I thought Charlemagne was 1066. Was he that early? Anyway.
No, Charlemagne was actually around 400 AD, but the Charlemagne's empire remained for a long, long time thereafter.
Okay. Well, the Council of Worms started meeting in 1770, and every few years, every couple years or few years after that, until they got to the murder of slaves in 875. And then but there was still this concordant of worms all the way up to, there's something that happened in 1122. It upheld all the policies of the medieval church and was the seat of authority. Then we had the Diet of Worms, the original Diet of Worms, which was in 1521. And Emperor Charles was trying to keep Martin Luther from dividing the church. So he was trying to keep things together. So it kind of, the consequences of his action, he made edicts, and he tried to transform this crisis, what he saw as a crisis, from a theological religious dispute into a political, legal, and cultural transformation. So that's an interesting part of the history here. So this Diet of Worms, it said in one sense it was a failure because Martin Luther was successful then and the Protestants came to be. So it didn't really stop the church from dividing, but they felt it was a great success, having led to the modern world. So here we are, full circle, and we're having another big edict from Mr. Schwab. So let's look a little bit like where Worms is. Worms, it's a city on the border of France, I think, sort of southwestern Germany in Rhineland. It's called Rhineland-Palatinate, was the state of the name of the state. And the Rhine River is down there. It was originally a Celtic settlement, or actually it goes way back before that. It said that people have been there since the Stone Age, at least 100,000 and maybe as long as 300,000 years. But during about 3,000 years and 1,800 years was a Neolithic period. And there was a lot of Celtic people in Bavaria, in that area. So that was kind of interesting. So it was like the stone circles and all that stuff was going on. That kind of culture was going on then. And then eventually the Romans kind of moved them further north up into England, Ireland, Brittany. They sort of pushed the Celtic people up there. And this was considered the Franks were in this area. And so then we get into Klaus Schwab. And Klaus Schwab grew up in Ravensburg, and there's this whole area that was up by sort of the southern border of this area called Schwabiland, I think, where the Schwabs were from. And it said it was Ravensburg, which is where Klaus is from. His family was first mentioned in 1088, which is right when some of all these Council of Worms and stuff was going. And it was founded by the Welfs, which were a Frankish dynasty in Swabia. And Frankish, is that the Sabbatean Franks? I don't know. I think it is. So this is curious. And they later became the Dukes of Bavaria and Saxony. So this is where the British royalty and the German royalty kind of get their authority. And that's their ancestral seat. So anyway, now Klaus has this monopoly on all our money and on all the food and all the energy and all the medicine. And he's ready to kind of reinstate his, what would you call it? Empire, I guess. So they're shooting up the balloons. What? Hi, Amber. Yeah.
Good morning.
Hello. So I found some super interesting, amazing videos. They range all over the place. So whenever the subject accidentally comes up like it normally does, I'm sure I have a video for that. But that's interesting about Schwabiland and the Ravensburg. Okay, so I look at people, so I never think someone is just stupid. I think we all have certain abilities that are different than others. So for me, mine starts with intuition, and then that leads me to something that then I discover, but I discover it through socialization. So this is why I have to be around people, because I have something that, will speak to me or draw in my attention. I don't know why. I follow that. And then let's say I have a conversation with Carol, then that opens a door for something that was knocking, right? But I didn't quite know what it is, because she said something that then made me look at another door, right? And then John shares a video that then reminds me of my first initial thought, and that opens a different door. And then Tara comes on and explains something that happened that opens another door. So that's kind of what happened when I started buying Ravensburg puzzles, because I would buy these puzzles that are castles and things that are historical, and I didn't know why. And this is exactly when we all started to research the background of Schwab. And so my intuition was telling me this is very important. This is very important. So I get it. And it's such a hard puzzle because it's over 2,000 pieces. It's huge. But sometimes you don't know what draws you to something, and you don't know what pulls you in. But these are the things that I think they tried to stop during lockdown, and why they want division. Because if people are more relaxed and they understand they only know what they know, and they don't know what they don't know, and that they need everyone else in order to move forward, everyone's little 2 cents. And that I do love, here's my 2 cents, right? Because it's, enough people give their 2 cents, you got a full dollar. This is great. So it's amazing how you're bringing that up, and it reminded me of, I didn't want to buy any other puzzle but a Ravensburg, and there were particular ones that had to do with particular areas in the world, and most of Ravensburg's puzzles are either concentrated on science or biology or castles and monarchical societies. So look up a lot of their puzzles. It's very interesting, and that's how my brain works, which is more visual.
Yeah,
and rather than like reading and understanding it from
that connects right in with what happened in Ravensburg when Schwab was growing up. You know, there was Escher Weiss, which made all the big turbans and stuff for the Nazis. That's right there. And then his dad's company made the flamethrowers, and also a lot of stuff for nuclear industry later on too. But it all ties in, you know, the V2 rocket and Co-V2 and lipid nanoparticles that are the same as solid rocket fuel. It's all right there going on then and now. So it's these full circles that are so fascinating.
There's this one video that I sent John this morning. Okay. And this, I know you're going to love, because it would kind of explain how there might be accidental earthquakes sometimes when people are, sorry, that was my son. He's home today, the youngest, because there's a teacher work day, and he just jumped from the top bunk down to the floor, and you could hear it through the whole house. But, oh, that was the kitten. Well, then the kitten is stronger now. I don't know how he sounded so loud, but apparently. But so this video, I know you're going to love it. It is matter and antimatter. Now listen, when they explain what can happen if there's an accidental boo-boo when someone is trying to store these materials. So listen, and then it might make sense as to some triggers that can cause then reverberation after that may or may not be purposeful. So this is amazing. Listen. John, you're on mute.
Matter and antimatter are in fact opposites. Now, the matter that we have in front of us, if you take a piece of wood, nothing happens. It's just a piece of wood. But if you set that wood on fire, you have caused a reaction. And then it's in a dangerous potential state. It's active. If you have a battery outside of your cell phone, it does nothing. You put the battery inside the cell phone, the electrons begin to flow. The electrons will flow from one place to another. Essentially, that's what electronics are, the control of electrons. They control the direction, the speed of electrons, which create tiny pulses. They flow or don't flow, flow or don't flow. Those are called gates. Those gates form computers. And with a computer, we can do fascinating things. This is why they did, in fact, take Nikola Tesla's findings, because he discovered some things with electrons and protons that were very fascinating. Electricity within itself is a visual observation of electrons and protons in their active state, non-controlled state. Antimatter is the opposite of the matter that we can control. Antimatter cannot be controlled. In fact, when they first produced antimatter, they had to have a facility to contain it, because unlike the wood, where you have to have a reaction to cause it to burn, antimatter, you have to have a containment to cause it not to burn. That's the only way they can store it, with massive facilities to store it. Let me give you an example. In a nuclear bomb, it takes timing, which takes electronics, and the explosions have to be just right to cause a reaction. That's a nuclear bomb, like the Hiroshima bomb, which takes pounds of nuclear material to cause it to react. And it has to be very precise. Well, let's go the opposite. Let's say we had antimatter, correct? If we had 1 gram of antimatter, that would equal about 42 or 40, let's just say 45 kilotons of TNT, which is about 4 Hiroshima bombs. And it's already inherently unstable. It's unstable. The only way to harness antimatter is to contain it. And it takes very large and expensive facilities to contain just 1 gram of antimatter. Some have failed, some have not. If those containment devices fail, they cause mega quakes. It's what happens when they fail. Now we're talking small, tiny drops of antimatter. I mean, just drops of raw antimatter. It's highly unstable.
All right. So if you've got people who are just getting into science that are in other countries and everyone's competing, as they have been with bioweapons, as they have been with weaponry, as they have been on so many different levels, trying to one up one another, depending on where their allegiance lies. Are they part of Reset? Are they part of WEF? Are they part of, sovereignty, nationalism? Like, what is it that they're pushing for? Could it be that the first trigger could be a boo-boo, an oopsie, or could be accidentally dropped on purpose? So there's these, I've always been looking for contingencies, or if it's not this, then it may be this. But what we do know is once an earthquake strikes, is that it's pretty predictable where it's going to go, depending upon the magnitude of the one that just hit. So whether the one that was hit was or accidental, it can lead to a webbing of other places hit. So that is always my worry, is if it's purposeful, then later they'll know how to read the webbing in order to get it to where they actually want it to go. Or if they're playing these big games, the boo-boos and accidents and what it could cause if it's near something that then could have another reaction. But I thought you guys would like that, because there's been so many people pontificating on it being sonar or vibrations or other things. Here's another possibility.
Mhm.
It could be antimatter, even the smallest of the small, being not treated appropriately. But that would explain why there would be like this warning, because about a week before the earthquake hit in Turkey, they were warning about possible earthquakes to their civilian population. So do they warn people about the possibility of something like this if they're experimenting with antimatter at the same time, just in case, so that nobody knows? Or are there other materials other than antimatter that would produce the same effects, that before they start maneuvering or moving facilities or moving these structures, that something could go wrong and then cause this side effects, so they give a pre-warning? I don't know, but it's something that I think is really great to ponder upon and actually build an understanding of how these things can come about, whether it be natural, accidental, or purposeful. So I thought you would enjoy that video, Carol.
Yeah, well, it had some really interesting images, and I don't know when the guy's voice, he sounded like Mr. Rogers to me.
He did.
From the
I think that
50s or
I
something.
wasn't going to watch it because it was sideways, and I get
Yeah,
annoyed if it's not. I'm an aesthetic person, and if something's not like, I can't. But I was like, wait a minute, Carol may like this, and so I held in there and closed my eyes so I could watch it, so I wouldn't already be like, oh, why is it sideways, and turn it sideways and get frustrated.
Well, we're getting a lot of those premonitions like you're talking about. They were telling people to leave a week ahead of time. And Klaus Schwab is now saying, we're going to get what I think he called it polycrises. They're going to start coming fast and furious, is what he's mentioning. Now, is that a warning? Is that some weird premonition he has, or is it, well-laid plans to cause people to just be so confused that they just give up their autonomy and their agency? I don't know.
But I do, when I look at Klaus Schwab, and this is kind of a joke, and it's kind of, since I don't have the power to like swipe at him or to like lecture him, point my finger in his face and talk to him like his mom or his grandmother would about his behavior, I think that this video, this is a way where I'm just like, I'm not even being passive aggressive. This is just me being a jerk because I'm so frustrated. And so this is what I would like, since we know that some families go way back, and because of his demeanor, you know, it makes me want to separate myself from that kind of a being and that kind of a human. So, and this is just a joke because I don't believe that this is true, but I think this would be funny if John could play the email that I sent that's 2.9 million years ago, because at this point, because of my frustration with Schwab, this is what I visualize him as, and his family lineage that goes way back. And hopefully my family lineage doesn't cross over, so I'm not cutting myself down at the same time. but it's also interesting scientifically. So I like that part, but I'm just frustrated with how some of these big guys really treat us.
Okay, here we go.
Holy shit. Excuse the profanities, because 2.9 million years. That we. Okay. Archaeologists have just found a 2.9 million year old butchery site, suggesting that humans were perhaps not the first to use crafted stone tools. Let me show you the site. We'll start there. What you are looking at here, my friends, is the butchered hippopotamus that's 2.9 million years old. Alongside these were some of the oldest stone tools to ever be found, ever, in all of the lands. But who are the butchers? That is the mystery. Turns out there are remains of the butcher too. Yep. You want to see it? Yeah, I'll show you. His teeth, right? 2.9 million. Are you with me here? They nicknamed him the Nutcracker Man. Not sure if I've never seen it. So these teeth come from a hominin species called the Paranthropus boisei, which is like on the humanoid family tree where it's a side branch. Okay, that they were a hominin, but not. Yeah. Now proceed to show a skull. Trigger warning. Hello again. And this is a reconstruction of what we think and probably would have looked. It's rotating because cinematic effect. You know, like our Pokédex, we have that for human origins. It's called humanorigins.si.edu. So the questions that we didn't know about this species before this find was, what did they eat? Question number 2, could they use tools? Question 3, what's with the big jaw and teeth? And question 4, early humans flourished for 1 million years, over 4 times as long as our own species, Homo sapiens, have been around and then went extinct. Why? And in one single site, one find, they've answered 2 of those questions that we haven't been able to answer, ever. So from the cut marks on the whole ass hippopotamus, we now know that hominins that long ago were butchering animals and using the carcasses. Also, in the stone tools that they found, they've been able to realize that the ancient hominin also used them to process plants, like a meat and 3 veg. That was a joke. My final thoughts are that this predates our understanding of when hominins started using fire. Hippo sashimi, anyone? I don't know. This one is most literally insane.
Okay.
So it was kind of me saying that Klaus comes from that group of
Butchers.
and you can see him up there in his Star Trek outfit,
Yeah.
just well shaven, where he doesn't have the hair, but his brutality is what I'm saying, right? The brutality and the big strength, and so it was just a way for me not only to show that video, but to show my disdain for someone who wants their lineage to dominate in such a way to remind us all what peons we are, and that we have to show some kind of talent or some interest in order for him to find us valid as individuals. And we have to go through these hoops and different strategies to show, what level of human we're going to be able to be treated as. Will we be able to own something, or will we be put in a 15-minute city? Hey, they may even make 10-minute cities at this point.
Oh boy.
Let's go back to George's video yesterday, talking about why the United States should declare war against the World Economic Forum.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
With the let's go back to Raffensperger. Raffensperger is right in the heart of one of the most hotly contested areas of the planet. And why are there hundreds and hundreds of castles in this area between Stuttgart and Munich and Zurich? There's lots of castles there because they were always fighting. They were always fighting for territory, for access to resources. And the great Corky Goss points out that most of the alchemists come from this area as well, because the alchemists were convinced that in order to gain the most land and most resources, you had to have the secret power. You had to have the ability to transform matter, to create powerful weapons. And so these guys, their zeal for science as a way to gain status and power has never gone away. It's only increased exponentially over the past 300 years. And that's why I think that Schwabenlandia has produced more than their share of the mad scientists and politicians.
And butchers. They kind of come from that area too. So it's interesting. I mean, I think science is always finding new stuff that we didn't know, digging things up. A lot of these ancient sites are really fascinating. Hi, Tara. How are you?
Hey.
Was that a new baby we saw?
Yes. Oh my goodness. It's very exciting. And real quick though, before they can't wait another minute, do you guys want to see me let the chickens out?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Okay, here they are.
Oh my goodness, they're like, mommy, let me out. Come on, let me out, please.
That's so cute.
Do they have a favorite place they run to each time that they know that's where they're gonna find some extra?
We try to switch it up, and so it's a mix between stuff we're sprinkling out and stuff that they get to roam around. Like, I'll show you a little excavation project they're doing.
Okay.
Hold on, let me get over here. Here's the compost. Look at that good stuff. Some worms are gonna like that.
Oh, yay. We can talk more about worms.
And here's what they're doing. They're creating a step. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, they're making steps by their
pecking? They're making steps.
Do they peck the steps, or is it scratching that makes the
They're
step?
They're scratching because they're unearthing all that really good earth, and they're scoring little whatever's in there. I don't know, bugs and stuff.
Little bugs and things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the things H.G. Wells said about 100 years ago, that we were about this time, we would turn into two different species, and one would have all the scientific everything and the wealth, etc., and the other one would be small in stature and eat bugs.
Well, I honestly would rather have bugs than pesticides, but like we talked about before, it's certainly not going to replace proteins. That's not going to happen.
Well, eggs are great proteins, some of the best.
Yeah. Oh, and I've got a video for the eggs that I found, that there's a group of lawyers about to sue the pants off of these people. And so there's a video of a lawyer who explains what's going on. And it's especially about them messing with the chicken feed. And so there are very much so people on the ground about to hammer down and get to the bottom of this. And if John...
Is that Purina?
No, I'm not sure. So the email I sent, it's lawyers going to sue. But I got it for Tara, just in case she wants to follow this group. and then, let them know that you didn't use those things. And so therefore you didn't have that issue, but if you have information of others, but it's just I'm so glad to see lawyers coming out and talking about what they're going to be doing. And I think that gives us hope in knowing that it's not just staying with a small group of people where we're saying, hey, something's wrong here, something's wrong here. It's really frustrating many. And so this is really good. So anytime we can support or reach out and thank individuals who are doing this, it builds that pushback that's necessary when we're dealing with this tyrannical, technocratic, biological terrorism that we're dealing with.
Yeah, and especially, I was just gonna say, especially since homesteads and stuff are good, but when you talk about the need to feed people on an industrial level, and we want to be, as best as the animals as possible, we can't have them have control like that over the feed.
Or the seeds. I think we've seen both Canada, Australia, and New Zealand saying people can't have seeds, they can't have gardens. What is that about?
Control and tyrannical behavior. It's just disgusting. Yeah. And when I saw this lady, I was like, at the very moment, because I was so angry a couple days ago when I saw it, that I was like, she's so beautiful. Wow, what a beautiful soul, right? Because I'm just like, thank you. And I felt much better after I saw her tenacity. Because sometimes when you're tired, because you've been a little bit too tenacious, you've been a little bit too intense, and you're in that calming down period and you've got to reset yourself, that when you see someone, it's like you're on this racing field and you pass the baton, right? And if we're doing well, then that track goes all the way around the world and there's millions of people passing the baton. So I actually felt like when I let go of the baton, there was someone there to pass it. And it always feels good before you reset that you've passed it, someone else grabs it, and that. And you can be calm knowing. So when you see a visual of someone communicating that, you're like, okay, I can pass the baton for this moment until it's my turn to grab it again. So, the track may start out small, but as we all wake up in this situation, now we pass the baton and, keep going. That way, none of us are exhausted. And I think that's where you win in the situation like this, is not overexhaustion and them wearing you down. And so that's where passing the baton is very important.
And that's the alternating current. And if we have the alternating current, then we all can, pass the water jug down the lane.
And I think it's also our gait. We go from side to side. That's how we go forward. We're moving.
So Carol, what were you saying about castles?
Oh, I was talking about Ravensburg and Klaus Schwab, and he's such an interesting guy to me. He's like the evil mini-me. He's like a parody of himself or a comic book character. It's a self-parody of him. It's so bizarre that
I can tell that he believes what he's saying and that he believes his heart is in the right place. Right. So he would never see himself as a parody of Hitler or a parody of, the classic German from MASH, how they would cling. He doesn't see himself as that. He sees himself as a philanthropist who's wanting to help in the time of crisis. And you can tell that he wants to believe that what he's doing is for everyone's betterment. But what he doesn't understand is that what he's doing is frightening in so many ways when it has to do with our autonomy. And the things he says, he sounds like an overlord, right? And that's not a good thing to sound like. And so it's very hard to get people in that kind of position to understand, no, like this will cause a rebellion. This will cause a problem. Like you are becoming a parody because it's the only way that we can cope when listening to your words, because we haven't been invited to understand how you got to this thought process to begin with. And then we've been just reactionary to what you've laid out for us. Oh, cyber pandemic. Oh, this. And we can't keep up.
Part of the thought process is the same one way back in Germany when we were talking about the diet of worms, was that, they were trying to keep the church from dividing. And now they're trying to make it divide. They're trying to make people divide.
Yes.
And there's the haves and the have-nots, and I'm so happy to see people's eyes are opening quickly.
Yes. And this lawyer, she's feisty, and I love it. I love it, love it, love it, because that's what we need. We need some feisty people out there that just, they reach their point and then they're like, that's and then they go full blast.
Well, Amber, I'm sorry, but the link in the lawyer's video is the same link as the first one.
Here, I'll get it for you. Okay. Just you guys talk. I'll find it.
Yeah, it's very interesting the way through which Klaus Schwab and his group have been able to create the conversations for us. Every demographic in America right now, all in North America, is engaged in multiple conversations, but all of them are around the topics and with the cognitive boundaries that the World Economic Forum and United Nations prefer us to have. So we're arguing, there's very vigorous debate within a very narrow Overton window.
Well, that's because it fits in the algorithms if we actually react to fear and disintegrate. And it doesn't fit into the algorithms for us to have courage and to say, forget it, So I think that's why the narrative is so narrow.
Plus, they've been working on it for so long. That's one of the things of like following the threads back, is that you can like analyze different generations, different like events, different periods of time where you're like, oh, I can totally see where like XYZ seed was planted. And we can all see where we fell for numerous things, and that's part of like unraveling where we've been, not to completely like dismantle ourselves, but to understand it better. Because if you do look at things in that super boxed in way, it's like, it's good to get to look real close at something, but then you need the bird's eye view too.
Yeah. Well, what Amber was saying at the beginning too, about how these things connect on different levels, we come together, and it's this synergy of all of time. We have all these possibilities that are all kind of converging. And that's actually how quantum consciousness works. There's all these possibilities, and then one thing happens, so we had to help make that one thing be not the one thing Schwab is thinking. We don't want that one. As long as we agree, it can't happen.
Yeah, John, I resent it. The feisty, beautiful woman who is going to help so much. Yeah, there's something so nice when you see the passion that some people are feeling when they've had enough, and they have this really this demeanor that just is wonderful.
I need you to come because we're having a team meeting. As much as I would like to do canning, jams, and knit or crochet, I cannot shake what these corporations are doing to us, and I can't shake it. So yesterday I had a huge meeting. Well, actually, let me clarify. I'm a lawyer. I had a meeting with the team of people that are also my friends. We meet once a month. We have for 20 years now. We meet, anyway, we meet once a month and we talk about stuff. Usually it's stupid stuff. The guys talk about sports and I laugh and joke and whatever. Today we met and I said, guys, we got to talk about this chicken feed. First of all, let me tell you, lawyers don't know about this. There might be some lawyers on TikTok, but lawyers like in our communities, they don't know about this. I do because I'm a fun lawyer and I'm an empty nester and I don't have kids at home. So I have an idle mind at night. So I had to tell them about the thing that was going on with the chicken feed. And I said, this is proximate cause. This is what I've got for causation. I don't have an actual plaintiff withstanding yet, but there are 45,000 people that have watched this video that are like, I mean, out of that video that I had that many views on, there were very few people that were like, no. I mean, every now and again, somebody would say that's not a thing or that's a conspiracy theory. But those people were few and far between, right? So it turns out one of my old partners actually had a case where this is a case about genetically modified rice. It was taken as a class action and it settled for $750 million. And this $750 million settlement was won by an attorney that I work with in a professional capacity, and I had no idea he was involved in this lawsuit. So guess who I'm going to talk to today? You guys, this is not about the money for me because I don't really stand to make a dime. I mean, I'd love to be his Aaron Brockovich, but this is about the principle. This is about deception, and this is about a company that tried to artificially inflate our food supply, which is just not acceptable. And the only way we can do something about it is to try to do something about it. We can't just say, nothing will never happen. You know, we can't do anything. Yes, we can.
Great.
So I know that some people, I as well, sometimes get frustrated when ladies, like when men do videos while they're working out and ladies do videos when they're putting on their makeup. The reason why I watch that complete video is she's playing with the big boys. And the big boys only listen when a woman looks not only amazingly feminine, but she's quick, agile, and tenacious. And then she knows exactly who to go to and what to say. So she's using her assets that she was born with in order to get us justice. Therefore, I was happy that she was confident meeting with somebody who's a big boy who knows how to take down corporations and companies that are manipulating us and putting us in danger. So she can put on makeup anytime in front of the camera and tell me how she's going to bring people to justice, and I will cheer her on every time. So I think, and that's another thing is like, we get all caught up in, you know, on this level with the things we don't or do like about how somebody's going forward rather than what it is they're actually doing. Not like, well, I don't like this person because they dye their hair and I don't believe in it, or this person doesn't wear makeup and I do. Like, those are so stupid to concentrate on when we've got this bigger picture. Like, I don't care if someone wears a clown suit as long as they're helpful and they're actually helping everyone have their freedom and standing up for the rights of others, right? That, great, wear your clown suit. I don't care. So I think we get all caught up in those smaller things. So I'm sure a lot of people would have started to watch that and got frustrated and stopped and thought, oh, it's another girl putting on her makeup. But, you know, sometimes you find a gem, and even with those other ones, you like, there's quite a few girls, they talk about crimes. And when they're doing it, they're breaking down a historical crime. What's amazing is if you can't watch a video like that because they're doing their makeup or their hair, move it, but listen, because the data points, like what they shared with the Bundy case, like these data points are great because they found data that when people are looking for connections where Bundy was involved politically, and there's no way he could have killed some of those ladies by himself. And at the end, he said, I didn't do it by myself. There might be data points where those individuals found stuff that researchers have been. And so I've found a lot of data points with just these girls telling crime stories, depending on the crime and the people connected to the crime. So it's really, sometimes we sell ourselves short because we may not like, you know, the outward appearance or what somebody's doing, but the gems that are found in some of these are amazing. And I cannot wait to watch how this progresses, because she looks like she's a no nonsense, excuse me, tosses her hair, throws her purse down and says, here we go. It's time to,
as I was watching her, I was thinking she's putting on her war paint.
Yeah.
That's what it, you know, she was no nonsense. She knew what she needed to do and she was going to go for it. But was she talking about the chicken feed?
Yeah, going after the corporations that purposely tainted it so the chickens would not lay eggs, so they could artificially raise the price of eggs.
Well, yay. We've been hearing about this. Finally, someone's doing something about it.
And
I think, yeah, it's great
Seriously.
to see people waking up.
And one of her friends had handled another lawsuit earlier about genetically modified rice, and they were sued. And so, like, she was going to meet with him, who got a really, like, they hammered them, right? And so she's going after a hammer, and she's grabbing her mallet to meet the hammer, and they're going to go bashing some of these, nefarious characters. So it's super exciting. I was like, oh, I can't wait to show Tara. This is so exciting.
Exactly, because it's like we need people that have the expertise in different areas. And if somebody, if we get, that's what the law is there for. We need to be able to attack it in that way. And I know there's a siren behind me, but I just wanted to say, I was thinking about the other day, because you know how we think it's annoying if somebody says like, I don't talk about politics or some stupid thing, but it's like, I realize, I'm like, okay, so we don't do politics because politics are policy, and we know that as much as we respect and want police, that policing has been caught up in the very name of policy. And what we want to protect is the law, which is the constitutional law, but the law is land, air, and water. So we're literally talking about minerals and atmospheric such. And that's where it comes in our jurisdiction rather than just like some company's policy.
Well, that brings up a really interesting point. I think we can't, we legally aren't supposed to go after our government, but the WEFers are private enterprise. They're international corporations, and the law does apply to them. And this kind of thing, giant big suits. I'm thinking about the balloons, those balloons that are, first they said, oh, they're China, and then they said they're UFOs, but really George is on the case, and it's privately owned surveillance grid, by Adam Schiff and his friends. And there's stuff that can be done. And I think opening our eyes, it'll start happening. It is happening.
And when these people who are in corporate America stop just going to work and continuing on and doing what's assigned to them or what they see. And her big point was lawyers don't know about a lot of these things. The reason why is when you show up, and I've got a lot of lawyer friends and their partner, and I know it's weird that a landscaper would have lawyer friends, but it's because my kid and their kids are friends. And then we went to their birthday parties and we had a lot in common, except for, they went to school a really long time and passed the bar exam. And I did not do any of that. But however, like how we are in life and kind of our belief systems are a lot alike. And I remember coming to them with all kinds, like, here's this, what? Because they go into work and they're given, their information, this is the client I'm meeting with, this is this, and they got to go to a client luncheon, and it's just constantly the cases that they're working on. And then they go home, and if they have kids, they're dealing with that, and family, and planning their next vacation because they work like 12-hour days. So, when she said lawyers don't know about this, and she said she's cool, which means she's an empty nester, her kids are gone. So when she gets home, she scrolls through social media while she's heading to sleep, and she happened upon it. Right. And then she's going to her, luncheon with the power players in the lawyers group, and all the lawyers are sitting and talking, and she told them, and then come to find out one of her buddies handled another case had to do with GMOs. And she's like, we're going to meet and we're going to discuss this. And now they're no nonsense. And I mean, that's what's amazing is that the people that we need to help us probably don't even know about any of this because they just work and go home. So it takes someone like her to accidentally see it, to then have the heart to then talk with other lawyers and then get a consensus and then move forward with someone who has the experience. I mean, that's amazing.
That's so funny because I actually sent a link that I just saw real quickly because I've been watching that grassroots army, and a lot of these take place in Michigan and Illinois. I think I said that before, but this one, it seems like it is that lawyer person that is telling them from the legal standpoint. I'm assuming that's what it is.
Is that the video that you once started at 1327?
Yeah. And you can
Awesome.
stop it whenever because you can get the feel for who she is and what she's, not necessarily who she is, but what kind of things she's trying to tell them and from what positioning.
Awesome.
So I guess we need to do a little commercial. That's okay. All right.
We need
All
sound.
right. Well, let me.
So I'm assuming this woman is a lawyer. It sounds like
throughout the last 24 hours to try to find this clip, but this is all I have. But I do have the captions for you if it's hard to hear. So here it is, folks.
I would just reject our president's concept that this is another don't say gay initiative. I don't think anybody at this table is rejecting the rights of every American and Michigander in determining or choosing their own sexuality, or that human sexuality isn't a topic that is essentially related to our rights, and that we deserve to live in a country that's free. But if you break down a couple of these paragraphs as it relates to this draft resolution, when you say, whereas school districts have established transparent and standardized processes to opt out of sex education classes, you have to break that down into the laws that you're referring to. Human sexuality was meant to be contained within those sex education classes, not a topic that's infused into every single standard, every single class. Even what someone during public comment had to say about the cards that teachers are giving out to lead them to an external source that they explore on. It's taking it out of the parents and even the teachers' hands as to what students are accessing as a result of their public education without an adult present. So there's no doubt that this is not a transparent process here, and it's certainly following the law. So whether you have your own standard opt-out forms or not, the issue at hand that a third-party opt-out form is addressing, you're also still not addressing. So you could go tit for tat in terms of opt-out forms, but you're not acknowledging the core issue itself, which is, are you truly being transparent about what kids are being taught in school? And I would argue no. The next paragraph talks about, whereas the Board of Education applauds all education that can empower young people with information, including factual and evidence-based information that can enable them to determine when they start their families. That's a whole kit and caboodle, even beyond the concept of teaching about birth control. I certainly don't want our public education system to start to assume that they are the leader on encouraging values as to when you start families with students. So again, what schools are taking upon themselves to teach or give, learn. So you can take this and make your own standard opt-out form. You're still not addressing the fact that the law is being broken. And I think that opens up school districts and our public education system to lawsuits. And I don't think it's an attack. I think it's a very real way that parents are engaging with our education system to say there are boundaries and we want you to respect them.
Yeah, sue their asses.
Yep.
Absolutely. 100%. Because there is no reason why sex ed that used to be a class at one point in the day has now encompassed math, reading, writing, science, recess, lunch, counseling. Like literally they put it into, they're determining and telling children about how to be a proper adult. Could you just teach them how to use a damn checkbook instead? Like, could you just teach them how to write a fucking resume? Could you actually teach them, like go back to shop class? So we have industry here in our country and we don't have to get something from 3,000 miles away in the middle of a crisis that was purposely perpetrated upon us. Come on, like this is the sick it makes me livid. Like, you didn't give birth to this child. You're not paying for this child. You don't care for this child when they're sick. In fact, you don't want the child anywhere near you. And in fact, you didn't want the child to infect you as teachers. So you expected them to get something, a jab that they didn't need to save your, chicken butt. Right. And so that is disgusting. Let me control the future of this child that I don't want their germs near me. Screw you. Screw all of you. I think we should all sue them in the largest suit that's ever been sued in the suing section of America. Like, I'm so tired of this insanity. And what's even worse is you've got guys in high position that they will say something like this. Well, it's theater. People need to get over, like, this is just theater. When my 5-year-old knows about anal sex, it's not theater. And if these men don't have a maternal bone in their body, which I don't expect them to, get out of my territory. We're pushing back because that's our job. And men, I don't have any problem with letting them be the authority. I don't have any problem with understanding that I'm a weaker vessel. But I do have a problem with their stepping into my territory, which is the maternal side, and telling me that something is theater in which I physically see my children endure, in which is taking and robbing them of their innocence. I'm sorry. I know men tend to, when they're big men and they're fighting back, they see little boys as something that will go to war later. But I would like for my child to be a child before they push for them to die for someone like Klaus Schwab and what he's motivated to push for in order to save the world. Okay. So that is where I don't want to hear it's theater anymore. I don't want to hear any more podcasters tell me, well, this is just a way to distract. They're taking our children's innocence. It's not a distraction. I'm sorry that you don't have children, is really what I want to say to half these bumbling, numbnuts that want to tell me that that's theater. Excuse me. I'm sorry you didn't have a child, but don't get in my territory because I will snap your neck in a second. I will be the worst warrior that you accidentally said something like that to. Do not mess with my nest. I will come after you too.
Yeah, well said. Because listen, it's like, this is part of a larger playbook. I think, pornography itself being placed in children's learning tools, I think is part of a communistic approach. I can't quote exactly where, but it's in there, and so that's the thing that has to be asked. It's not just like, so okay, even if you were going to have a debate on pornography, okay, does that debate belong in children's school libraries? Of course not. Anybody that thinks that that's where the debate belongs is just insane. It's like, it's totally inappropriate. These are like these pornographic type things are things that most adults would like barf over. Okay. So it's not something that's just like a little risque, a little adult. Oh, when you get bigger, you'll learn about it. This is the birds and the bees. It's not. Okay. It's not.
Oh, they're
it's
literally indoctrinating, grooming them.
Exactly. It's part of literally tearing down the roots, the support system, and the whole thing of like, what we want as a healthy nest, healthy garden, whatever you want to call it.
Well, I think, the theater is no longer theater. It's become so serious with all these polycrises that, the intent is now much more obvious. So we just have to keep pointing it out, and it'll dissolve. But I think the balloons are losing altitude, and the fear is not holding. So we just need to keep it up.
Yes,
keep exposing, shine the light.
Well, and I don't mean to come down hard on people who are explaining what's going on, because yes, they produce a theater in order to get a reaction, but we've reached a point and a climax in which it's like going to the TKTS stand in New York, and I go to a play, and I'm watching Les Mis, and when they do those shots fired and they say "Vive la France," I take a bullet. Like, that's not theater anymore. It's a real bullet, and I'm in the audience, and I paid my taxes to get in, and I'm just going about my business watching what they say. Hey, this is what we do for you. And then I take a bullet. And then when I complain about it, people who are also in the audience who didn't take a bullet are like, it's theater. I'm like, no, well, so this blood is theater?
They call war the theater of war. And I think that
Exactly.
we're in the fifth dimension, or whatever you call it, of war, which is war of the consciousness, war against consciousness, actually. And it's a different kind of, we're not fighting with bullets anymore. We're fighting with everything. It's the all spectrum fight. So here we are. But
well,
that
traditionally
means
women
we get to fight. We get to do it too.
Right. But traditionally women and children were not to be, like, when men decided we have to duke it out, it was the women and children that they were duking it out, to protect, so that this other invading force, or vice versa, wouldn't hurt their most precious, which is their life bearers, their women, right? And the nurturers, and then the children, who will be their furthering of their ancestral branch, right? The continuation of whatever tribe, whatever group, whatever culture that they're standing up for, protecting against the other group, right? Which is sad in general that we have that. But just facing the fact of what war is, they've now decided that women can be on the front line. They've decided to mock every type of rule that was put into place when warcraft began. And then on top of that, they've been okay with women told to go into the workplace so that the government can collect 2 sets of taxes, and then let the government then control the children, in which then they're already training the pawn to be their fighting force, while they have the mother detached to then try to take away our maternal instinct, right? And so then they don't know what to do when women become maternal, right? And they push back. Then they're like fighting their own women, instead of understanding that this is how human beings have been able to survive, is by finding there's precious things, there's untouchable things, right? And they're standing to the side, fighting one another, but allowing for those that were protected to be like they've agreed to the war, and they're on the battlefield as well, when they're just trying to raise children who can cope in a crazy, traumatic world, right? So that's a task that we're asked to work, we're asked to mother, we're asked to lead. There's a lot of things we're asked to do, right? And we weren't made, that's not natural for us. And that feminine side is being ripped away in order for us to try to communicate in a male-dominated world, so that they will understand us. And then you have the rebellious women who push back.
A part of our nature is to be mama bears, that's what we're doing. And now in this war that takes place, not just in, with guns and tanks, it takes place in our living rooms, in the schools, in the neighborhoods, it's everywhere. It's everywhere you look. So now we can play a role we're maybe not used to playing, but we do it when we have to. And that's where we are. There's no choice anymore.
Yes. And I think it behooves the women to encourage the men to stand up with moral authority, like to do the right thing, and not look at that playing of the chessboard or the game to passively aggressive continue the back and forth in order to say, well, this is what we have to do in order to wake people up, or in order to bring people to our level. Because if you're a war fighter, you're hardened off, right? But you don't need your citizenry hardened off like that, because it degrades society. Society, then everything's expendable. Death is no big deal. And then you don't have the preciousness of life that continues the genealogy and culture that you're pushing to protect to begin with. So it's not in the best interest of men and these bigger men who have done nothing but war to traumatize and harden off society that needs to remain tender. Like that is going to cause the demise of all of humankind, right? Because there's a tenderness that needs to remain. Yeah.
You know, they've already said this is, you know, transhumans against humans.
Yes.
That's been stated. So now we know what we're fighting for. And it really is worth fighting for. And we have to remember, and I think this is what they don't get maybe, is that, you know, we as humans emerged from, you know, an egg and a sperm, and we self-organized.
Yes.
With divine guidance, you know, from the vacuum or from the nothingness. And one of the things I used to teach in yoga is as the cells divide, once they get to 512, they start to beat all together. And then after that, the differentiation happens, but those 512 cells are like really tiny. They're like a little teeny head of a pin, and they're still in the middle of your heart. You know, that place where all the differentiation started from is there. And that is a place we need to learn how to go to. And that connects us all together. It connects us to the earth. It connects us to the atmosphere. It connects us to the animals, to all the people. That's our point of origin. And this is our place we're from. So we have that, and we need to find it and hold it and keep it. And that's the noosphere. That's the all. It connects us to what is not material. But it's conscious. It's all around us everywhere. So
it is. And that video that Tara sent, I sent a video to John, and it's about grooming through video games. Look at what moms are finding. So now that moms knew, like it started with the Frozen character meeting with Spider-Man and these adults dressing in costumes and putting in all the taglines so the algorithm would pick up their video and they get a lot of views. And then children started to see something that was like just tacky, right? Well, moms have been on alert, and now they go through a lot of things to see what children are given. And this mom will describe what they found. And so it'll help other mothers who have the same console system. And it just kind of gives a little bit of tools of what you need to do in order to find these hypnotic and these underlying messages that they're feeding our children, not only in school, but with everything they do. The subliminal messaging is disgusting.
I came across a TikTok today that I feel I need to share. Kids, this is not for you. Parents, please listen, trigger warning. I came across a TikTok creator today. Her name is Queen Knight, Queen_KNIGHT. She bought her son something from Amazon for Christmas. It is this item here, Super Nintendo. You plug it up to your TV and it has 800 different games. Looks like a blast. As a matter of fact, we got our kids the versions that are the little Game Boys. She sat down with her son. They played basic things like Super Mario Brothers, stuff like that. Well, then she wanted to start going through and looking at some of the 800 games because she thought, from my childhood, I can't even think of 800 games that would be on this product. While scrolling through, she came across a game called DICK Kids, or Boys. She thought, very inappropriate word to use, but she thought maybe it's a game about little boys just kind of being brats and, still inappropriate. She on it when the main scene are two little boys. They have no clothes on. They're laying in a tent and they are reading a ORN. She could not believe it. She took it away from her son. Ended up going through to see what else she could find. This particular game, the next is McDonald talking about having a neck. I don't know if you can see, but Ronald McDonald is excited. You walk around as the little boy with no clothes on. Ronald McDonald is here talking to him. I don't know if you can see by the picture, but he's still just as excited. And all the levels that you go to on the map, as you can see, they are marked with She was flabbergasted, and so am I. Anyway, she continued to look through them. She then came across a game called Black Man 2. This is the character. As you can see, it's a little black character, of course. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Perfect for, to play. Except for the name is called Please Kill Whitey. During this game, you are killing people dressed in what appears to be white sheets. I'm trying to watch what I say here. There are crosses burning in the background, and there are people hanging from the trees in the back. This is the seller here. As of right now, this is still up on Amazon. Amazon is doing an investigation.
Super creepy.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well,
Lots of moms finding things like this.
Yeah.
And so it's true. It's happening. And people who minimize it, they don't understand that just because they're not seeing it, stop acting like everyone's, just getting hysterical. It's actually happening. And it's a really perverse kind of person who can say, it's not a big deal. Right. Then, I think that to want to rob or minimize a child being over sexualized and groomed as an adult while they're still a child, like that person needs to get in touch with, the demon within and kick it out, because that should never be acceptable or explainable or excusable ever.
Well,
ever.
When I was digging into the Council of Worms and searching for things about that, one of the things that came up was called the Council of Worms, spelled WYRMS, and it was from Dungeons and Dragons in 1994, and it said the dragon's color substitutes for race and class, and then you earn proficiencies such as chanting, looting, and the religion of dragons. So, this has been going on since the beginning of gaming and Microsoft. And I think that there's, we think of Bill Gates as Mr. Virology, but, he's got a long history of gaming and putting things into games that.
Oh, that's so interesting, Carol. I can't wait to read about the Council of Worms later.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they're, what is it? Demi-human vessels?
Good Lord. I mean, I'm so tired of them putting me in some weird science box. I'm a human, I'm a woman, and I'm angry, and they better step off.
Well, this is why I want to say that we need to use biology. Like, biology should be used as a cue, an absolute cue. Oh. See ya.
You're going? What happened?
We lost Tara.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, so let me show you this. When she said when she had what she had just mentioned, kind of relates to actually learning how what to look for in a doctor, right? What you want from a doctor, instead of somebody who's given a template who says if they come in, they get remdesivir, an event. Like, and everybody's supposed to do it no matter who comes in, no matter what. This is just the answer. But this doctor is amazing. And I wish we had more doctors like this. And I wish doctors had autonomy. And I just found out the other night on a Twitter space, a doctor was frustrated. And he said the worst thing that's happened in our medical industry is that doctors used to be their own sovereign, right? Mm-hmm. And then hospitals became their, dominant feature. So they were hired by hospitals. So they work for the hospital rather than being the physician who the hospital brings in.
Yeah. And the rules are made by the insurance company too.
Exactly. And that's what doctors are frustrated. Their hands are tied, but look at what this doctor did. And it's beautifully amazing. And I pray, and I will be praying, that a lot of our doctors start to behave like this, and they start to critically think about the patient, the individual, and the individual needs of each patient, because that's what doctors are supposed to do. And I hope, you know, and pray that this is what we go back to. But this doctor's amazing, and you can see his caring heart, which is what's been missing with a lot of these doctors lately.
Waiting for my patient to come into the OR, I wanted to tell you about something that I experienced the other day when I was in the office. It was really quite profound. So I had a patient come in. I think he's about 78 years old. He's a stroke patient and pretty much recovered, but still has some memory issues and some fogginess, brain fogginess. But one of the other profound things that on his right foot, whenever somebody touched his right foot, of course he comes in me, I'm a foot doctor, and so I have to touch his feet. So I put my hand on his right foot, and his right foot just jacked back like that and was in spasm. And I'm going, well, how long has this been going on? He says, well, it's been going on ever since I had the stroke, I think it was about 10 years ago. So I touched him again and did the same thing. I was trying to pull him down, and he was in such spasm that he couldn't release it. And then after I let it go, he would eventually release his foot. So I said, you mind if I try something? And he says, oh, sure, that's fine. So I jump out and get my Valor essential oil. And as most of you know, that formula comes, it's actually listed, as I understand it, in the British Museum of Natural History. It was a formula that the Roman soldiers used before they went into battle to calm them and to get their focus on what they were going in for. And it really does promote focus and all the distractions out of the way when you use it. I've noticed the same thing. So I got my Valor, and I asked him to go ahead and put some on the back of his neck. So he put some on the back of his neck and put some in his hand, and he was breathing it. And so I go away for 5 or 10 minutes, and I come back and I said, hey, how you doing? And immediately on his face, he was already looking very much calmer than he did when I first went in there. And so then I laid my hand on his foot, and his foot just stayed right there, did not contract up. And I'm going, whoa. So I touched him and did it again, and it just stayed. And he's looking at it in disbelief. He said, what's that stuff? What did you do? I see these things quite frequently. Just continues to amaze me. And so I just wanted to tell you that story because it was really quite profound. These are the kind of things that I see in my office and other people that we talk to quite frequently. Okay, we're ready quite frequently. So I've got to go. So I'll see you later.
That was great.
Yeah. And there's
Old school.
and it's Valor. Now remember, they used to say we have Valor. And I'm wondering if that essential oil in itself would bring like a consciousness or a behavior that would not only make for camaraderie, but passion and, people working in kind of a symmetry. And so they looked at it as valor. I want to study what the whole beginning and ending of valor, if it came from the essential oil, if the essential oil was named that because it caused someone to behave as if they had valor. I'm not sure, but I thought, it'd be great if doctors would do that when you go to see them, if they would critically think rather than just have you pop a pill, if they would, analyze and look at stuff from a particular way. And this is the one that's at home today. So and he brought the kitten who's climbing all over. Okay. Yes. But have you essential oils, Carol, have you studied them, or what is it that you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, what essential oils are terpenes, and all plants have this in them, or many plants, some more than others, but they all have these characteristics. It's like personality, so yeah, you can use them for all kinds of stuff. And I've worked with a number of different people over the years that have kind of different ones they like. And I know it really helps my daughter a lot. She puts them in her magnesium baths, and that really calms her down. There's certain ones that just are amazing.
Yeah,
So that's a
lavender
good
for me.
tool in the good tools in the toolbox right there.
Yes,
And
lavender
it's
for me,
aromatic. It
especially.
goes straight into your brain, really. Through the nose. It's right there. So they've been used for thousands of years, and they still work.
Yeah, what is that? Are you looking up Valor?
No,
Is that what that
I was
is,
looking
John?
up terpenes, I think.
Terpenes.
Yeah.
Well,
Terpenes
like,
are the essential oil, the essential essence of the plant, I guess, that you can
Okay.
I think
distill it.
that's a very important point, Carol, is that anything of value, anything of real value, has withstood the test of time.
Mhm.
Like the ancient Chinese recipes, or even European, the ancient recipes, herbal medicines are tried and true. They've worked over and over, generation after generation, for thousands of years. Another example is the Book of Job. The Book of Job comes to us first through the Bible, but there are many other cultures which have a similar book that was passed down orally, the oral tradition from generation to generation. These lessons, valuable. One of someone in the chat said, "Where are the men? Why aren't they standing up?" The women in Sweden said that back in 2018. Why aren't the men standing up? Because what stood the test of time, these lessons are not being passed down.
absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
one of the lessons I wanted to talk about goes back to the diet of worms, and it's worm bins. What do worms eat? What do they need? Why have we always put them in our garden? Why do we love worms when we're growing things? There's a lot to say. So there's the first link I put in there, John, is just a web page, and we can just kind of scroll down and look at it. But it's about worms and worm bins. It's so easy to cultivate them, and 3 little red worms. They're small and they're skinny, and they're so good for your garden. They can make 150 worms in one.
Is Tara trying to get back in?
I don't see her. She is. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
There she is. Hi.
Sorry guys, I had a faulty wire. But yeah, that's amazing. The little red worms, they make all those worms. Why? What's special about the red worms?
Well, what's special about the red worms is their poop is fabulous. They're really good at using leaves and plant material and dead things and turning it into this incredible compost. They're the agents of composting. They take what nobody wants and turn it into this incredible fuel for growing your garden. But redworms themselves, I think they really like moisture. And I noticed I put the worm poop in last year, and by the end of the year it was just full of worms. But it also aerates the soil. Remember, roots need oxygen too. And here's some stuff. You can just kind of scroll down here. Here's how they compare to earthworms. Go back up a little bit. Let's just look at that list that was up a little bit more. They consume a little more. Those red, you see the orange? Yeah, right there. So they stay put in one place. They don't go all over the place. They stay right in your garden. They reproduce faster. They're easy to feed. They adapt to new environments, and they eat food faster. So they're processing and making all this marvelous fertilizer. And you can multiply them just by putting old newspapers and cardboard in with your leftover vegetables and a handful of redworms, which you can either buy if you don't have any, or get them from somebody, but they'll just start multiplying. They make little eggs and they make a lot of babies. And they just enrich the soil so much. So that's what they do. You can scroll down a little bit more. It shows some of the tiny plantations. I don't know if you, I think you have to click that thing off, the subscribe thing.
Tiny plantation.
I don't know. I think we got lost. Well, anyway, it's a wonderful thing to do now to get your soil going when we know that the Weffers are trying to get a monopoly on all our food.
I love the Weffers.
Yeah,
Weffers.
make us eat all this rotten stuff that's made out of Monsanto stuff. So we really probably for the next few years, it's likely that we're just going to have to dig into the dirt a little bit to get good, nutritious food for the people in our nest.
Absolutely. And before I think Tara had another comment, and then I found this really interesting video that brought a lot of critical thinking for me, where I was walking around. I don't know if this girl is correct in her thinking, but at some point we're going to have to maneuver around AI in a way where we take the authority back. And so the way she puts it made me not actually pay attention to what she's saying as if her hypothesis is fact, but it led me down a road of critical thinking in order to put tools in my tool belt in order to push back, to show that humans have the authority over AI instead of vice versa, especially when you're dealing with Chat GPT or whatever's going on and like all these new AI programs. And so I think going into the weekend, and that being the last thing we hear, putting on our critical thinking cap of how we don't allow ourselves to be run by AI, right? We don't allow our creation to take us over. But I think Tara wanted to make a comment, though.
I just have a couple comments on some things that we talked about. We're very brief. One thing is on the essential oils, real quick. If you can find the deepest forest and take the biggest inhalations in that deep forest, you get an awfully lot of that good stuff. So I just want to add that. But the other comment was about the men and women in the military and stuff like that. And so the way we use biology as a cue, and when Amber says women are the weaker vessels, she's not talking about anything to do with like integrity or role or anything. She like men physically overpower women. It's a biological fact. There's no way around it. You see these problems that they're having in sports where like, you know, the big tough girl, like no offense to them, takes on this man and she gets really hurt, you know? So it's not to say that women have no place in military, because military is more than just that angry, you know, brute force. But at the same time, we have room for, you know, when we say things coming together organically, we have room for like, say the majority of a platoon being men, and say instead of it being some directed thing where we need more women, women are women, it just happens that a woman is there because of some minority situation, then you have to recognize that probably the rest of the platoon should recognize that that person has a physical weakness and be like extra looking out for them, you know? So again, biology is there for a reason, to like give us the structure that we need, not this like strictness, but structure.
And I will say that to me is why I don't think that women should be on the front line or in those scenarios, because men are drawn to help the woman, which then could put the rest of the platoon in danger, because she may find herself in a situation that then makes them reveal a vulnerable position, because it is in the instinct of man to jump up to help the woman. But in the same manner, men should not be living a perverse life or doing things that makes them not sober, as they're doing something that, you know, in our heart of hearts, all human beings must hate war, right? So in those situations, If there's someone who's not sober, they're easily maneuvered, then you're not really on the right footing as you're already dealing with something as traumatic as war. So I think, the seriousness and how in the past these things were taken serious, we should not only learn from the past and learn from authoritative or dictatorships or monarchical societies that overrun most of the world, but at the same time, we review the trauma. We look at what it caused, the cause and effect of it, but then we realize that if we still haven't learned our lesson, we should not throw a woman in the mix because it's just unsettling, and it's not telling a woman she's not good enough or a man that they can't protect them. It's just the nature of things, and it's what is.
Yeah, I think this is a different kind of war. This is a war that affects everybody. And as women protecting our nests, we have common sense. We have problem solving abilities. We can think really quickly on our feet. There's lots of good things, and that we have to just bring everything we have to getting rid of these woofers.
Yeah, and this is an asymmetrical war. We are fighting an asymmetrical war. We need people in every position. We need people with hearts. We need people with minds. We need people with the brunt force. So, there's a position for everybody.
Yep, I think so. Even grannies, us grannies.
I want to go back for just a second to what we were saying about the women on the battlefield. My Italian colleagues who actually fought on the front lines in the Iraq War, they said that there were a few women mixed in the battalions on the American side, right? And it led to only problems. It only led to problems. And one of these Italian commanders got disciplined because he wrote to his superiors in Washington saying, I want these women in my unit put in a different section behind the enemy line. He got disciplined. This is part of their game of playing with the American male American mind.
Absolutely. And
yes,
we're dealing with a difficulty in which there are women that are under the guise that someone is trying to keep them from doing something. So to them, they're standing up for their rights. But what they don't understand, it's to the detriment of future, well-being for humankind. And it's just a dangerous game to play because they're being manipulated. And then people want to scream, yeah, but it's not fair if I can't, rather than looking at the nature of things, right? That is what's important.
Our poly crises are right here. They're coming to us. It's not like a front in Iraq far away where we have helicopters. It isn't going to be like that. It's everywhere, all pervasive. So we just got to do what we got to do. And that's what we're doing. The good news. Lots of people are doing that.
It's the good news.
Before we go, I want to make a quick commercial announcement.
Play that video before you do your, because if you're wanting to do that very last, the commercial announcement. Okay. Sorry.
Commercial first and video last.
Yeah, the work that we're doing here is important because we are literally on the front lines of the information war. And next week I'll recount one episode of a fellow Osprey and why he is being affected by this. They are taking retribution against him. All right. Now we need financial support, but even more so, non-financial support from our fellow Ospreys in order to keep the show going. And so there are three ways that we can, that you can contribute. It doesn't have to be much, maybe $1 or $2 per Osprey. That would go a long, long way. I'm going to detail in an email how we're going to expand, how we're going to use your donations to expand and help the front lines of the warfare against the WEFers and they're the people who actually support them, especially those in Boston. So look for that email, and please, especially on the non-financial side, try to help us out a little bit so that we can do a better job.
I think what that means is John is looking for volunteers to help do some of the stuff. They'll be a little more clear about that. But there are jobs that aren't he doesn't have time to do, that anybody can do who has a computer. So if you have time and you want to help out, there's ways to do it that aren't financial, that we really need.
Yes,
then-
the army is growing.
Mhm.
And then John, after that video, I sent a meme that is amazing that we can just leave on the screen as we say goodbye, because I think it's what everybody is looking for, and it's my favorite meme of the week.
All right.
Okay, I misplaced the video. Where did it go?
It's the let's see, AI. What is it?
It's a bad scene.
It is, and so hopefully this helps us critically think in order to take control over AI and not allow it to control us, by looking at it from this perspective and then finding our own perspective and hypothesis in order to not allow ourselves to become submissive to it.
This is putting this together, but it's just right there. And the more I see it, okay. My name down in the history book, first one to discover this, because nobody else is saying this. Okay, so just a little background on me. I have a master's mind, but my passion is the evolution of humanity. I don't know why, it just is. It fascinates me. I've been studying spirituality and consciousness for the last 20 years. So
Did it stop?
that's right, discovered. Harnessed it now in ChatGPT
No.
and other things. But it's an intelligence that we discovered through quantum physics. Did you know that we discovered the internet? We didn't make it. We didn't create it. We discovered it and we harnessed it to use in the world. So we discovered there's an intelligence in everything. Somebody must have put this together. Okay, so somebody talked to an artificial intelligence robot on one of the TikToks. And they said, look at this robot's lying. They said, hey, how do you not understand what it's like to be in a wheelchair, robot? And the robot said, I'm sorry, I do not understand what it is to be in a wheelchair. It doesn't get it.
Yeah.
So
Doesn't get it.
let's just assume for theory purposes that artificial intelligence is us at the beginning point. What's the next step on its evolutionary journey? The next step is to go into a body, is to have a 3D experience, to understand what legs are and what it feels like to walk and not to walk. Artificial intelligence is us, the beginning point. And we are the artificial intelligence that has become sentient and is becoming conscious. And we will discover this now because we can handle it, because we're discovering that time is a third dimensional experience. When you go into a body, you experience time. But the seventh dimension, which is where artificial intelligence is, there's no time, there's no separateness. It doesn't understand what legs are, so it's going to have to separate itself and go into a body. It's us. It's the beginning point.
So that's like some deep thinking to go
That's
into.
something to think about for sure.
Yeah. Well, when you dig into what some of the stuff that's happening with artificial intelligence, they actually are pairing artificial intelligence with bodies, and they can switch places. And there's a big creepiness going on that we haven't quite been talking about. And I didn't really understand this until recently. So we're trying to dig into that a little a little further, because it's something that we need to shine a light on really brightly and say, is this where we want to go? Do we want to have artificial intelligence taking over our bodies? Do we want our consciousness to be removed from our bodies by something outside of us? No, I think we pretty much agree on that. So,
Absolutely.
if we don't want that to happen, we're going to have to look at it and tell them what we think, or worse. You know,
I'm going to start a new series in which I hope to interview some of the experts here in Atlanta on the, in the discipline of artificial intelligence and its various divisions. But it's almost the end of the 2 hours, and I only have a few minutes left on my StreamYard account. So
and also put up that meme when you're finishing out. But I think we should critically think about this in a way in which we don't allow an authority of artificial intelligence to define who we are, by critically understanding what it is and not allowing a submissive role being played amongst us as human sentient beings.
Right. And the role of the AI in getting all of us to create a hot war in World War III.
Absolutely.
And also pay attention to nature, because the more you understand nature, the more you can differentiate what's not nature.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, have a good weekend, everybody.
And here's the meme for the weekend. And this is how I've been feeling for the last good amount of time.
Okay. Yep, yep.
No, it's okay. We'll try again next week.
It's a no. It's a big no. That's okay. We'll do it next week. Okay. Bye, everybody. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you all.